can see people joining now. Hello, hello. Okay, time to start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Seminars. This is our third seminar. I'm your host, Rui, and I'm part of the City Ventures team. I know that where are the slides going? There they are. Many of you have tuned in last week to see Gav Thompson, the founder of KeefKef. What an amazing speaker and what an amazing story, actually. And we shouldn't also forget that the week before we had Paul Ettinger, the co-founder of Cafe Nero, and Kanye King, the founder of the Mobile Awards. So City Ventures, a lot of you have been emailing me separately to ask, so City Ventures, what's City Ventures? And we are a group of 14 amazing individuals, each with different strengths. And we are helping promoting entrepreneurship at City, and we are hoping to help you as a student or recent graduates to start your own business. So the people that you see circled, this is the people that I work with directly. And some of these people are the people that put together all the events, all the opportunities, all the competitions, all the entrepreneurial offer that you see at City University, not only for students and recent graduates. We're hoping to help you to start your business at some point in your career. The ladies on the right, they work in the business school and they deal more with scale-ups and businesses now ready to go to the next stage. Right in the middle, we have Professor Costas Andriopoulos and Professor Caroline Wirtz, and they are also known as the bosses and the associate deans of entrepreneurship at City University. And right below, we have Spark and Sharpie, the big bosses. So these are our mascots, if you like. So you can find more about City Ventures and the things that we do at city.ac.uk/City Ventures. From the start button, launch button, scale button, and connect button, you will find the entire offer that we have at City University for you. So tonight on the Startup Seminars, we will have Eve Wagg, the founder of Well Grounded, helping you creating business purpose and value proposition. But before we do that, let's go through our quick round of usual reminders. Entrepreneurs of City, this is a student society that approach us, our team, and this is a student society by students, for students, and they will have their first networking session this Saturday from 2 o'clock until 3. Do join them because they're creating a supportive community amongst the students in the hopes that they grow and they become one of the biggest societies at City. Also, let's not forget that we are offering the business advice support. So myself and some other members of the team are offering one-to-one appointments. If you have an Android phone or iPhone, use the QR code underneath, and that will take you to where you can book an appointment with myself or a member of the team. So next week we have Jenny Griffith. Jenny Griffith is the founder of Snap Vision, and she will be helping you how to develop your first prototype. Jenny actually founded a company called Snap Vision, and she's kind of revolutionizing the world of fashion by creating the first visual unit where you can browse and look for fashion as live. Excuse me. So it should be a really good session. Without further ado, I guess now it's time to put your cameras together and get a virtual round of applause and welcome Eve to the stage that will be telling us more about creating business purpose. Eve, hello.
Hello.
Are you there?
I am here.
There you are. Good to see you.
Lovely to see you.
So we can get the ball rolling. I'm just going to stop sharing now. So that gives us time to get your presentation loaded. But before we jump into your journey and your presentation as well, and thank you so much for having us. I actually did my research and I wrote a few notes about you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read it out to the students. So Eve Wagg is the founder and the CEO of Well Grounded. She's helping vulnerable adults to get into the coffee industry. This is in a nutshell, so Eve will be telling you more. Eve has over 15 years of experience in the voluntary sector across education, youth employment, and social inclusion programs. She has completed, in fact, an MSc in Voluntary Sector Management in 2016 at City University, funny enough, and she loves coffee, as we can all see from the background. Eve was telling me that she's actually in the office. Am I right, Eve?
Yeah, I am. This is our academy in King's Cross.
I'm amazed with all that paraphernalia that you have with coffee around you. Yellow cups on one side, blue cups on the other, cafeterias, coffee. Eve, so you get the ball rolling then. Do you want to tell us more about yourself, where you grew up?
Yeah, so hi everyone. It's very strange talking to people and you have no idea who's looking, what you're doing. I hope you've got a nice brew, decaf probably at this time of night. Yeah, so I'm Eve. I grew up in North London, in Palmer's Green, till my teens, and then moved out into Hertfordshire when I was a bit older. So yeah, that was where I grew up. So I now live back in North London, so I've gone full circle.
Oh, I see. Okay, so North London is the best, they say. So what was your family like, your family environment?
Yeah, so I grew up with my mum and my sister. We were a proper girl unit. We used to very tight, do a lot together. So yeah, had a really wonderful childhood with my mum, my sister, and big kind of family all over. We're lucky to have family all over the world. My dad lives in America, so he would come over and be very exciting, coming with all like fun presents from America to see us. But yeah, it was a real kind of girls' household when I was growing up.
So in terms of interest, this is still related to family life. So what were your interests when you were younger?
I wish it, like in my teens, was something more cool, but I was really into boy bands in my teens and dancing like a lot of girls. But I guess relevant to this topic, I've always been kind of involved in inclusion and not-for-profit and been interested in it. We're not quite sure as a family we are, but there's not kind of a history of it in our family. But from an early age, I was part of a theatre company called Chicken Shed, which is an inclusive theatre company in North London, and was there, and then kind of got involved in a lot of volunteering and activity at uni. So I guess without probably realising it until I started being called an entrepreneur and asked what my interests were, I realised just how much it was part of my kind of upbringing, to the point where I worked in a city farm when I was at uni in Coventry. So yeah, so it's definitely been an interest.
Boys band, farm, entrepreneur. Wow.
Way cool. I was reading loads. I was a real intellect. I was, yeah.
That's the way forward, I guess. The jack of all trades, really, and try a bit of everything until you find your way around. So if you were to say, what kind of entrepreneur are you? Do you think you are a thinker, a maker, or fixer?
I love the fact that you sent me this question before, because I was like, Google, what do you say? And you had this like, test where you could, you do that kind of, who am I? I don't know what the answer is. So maybe if I tell you, you can agree or disagree from your background of knowing how we slot into different types of entrepreneurs. But I think going through my career, I've very much been kind of very operational, very wanting to get stuff done, very much like looking at all the detail to get to the end goal, very kind of, let's go, let's be motivated, let's project manage. But as I've got kind of further on in my career, I'm much more of an ideas thinker. So I think that's always been there. But I think what's interesting is when you look at who you are, it can change can change over time. And that's a really exciting thing when you start to explore that with your own team, of when you do those personality things with your team and say, you may be that now, but let's think about how you want to adapt, and that changes over time. So I don't know what that makes me.
I think it makes you a chameleon. Let's settle there. A bit of everything. And like you said, I think we're seeing this from our speakers, is that at certain stage in your life and your career, you could be more tailored to be one thing, but the more experience you start getting, you start splitting yourself into being a maker, fixer, and a thinker. From what I know about you and your business, I would probably say is a combination of the three. So I'm happy with your explanation. So this is my last question, and this will get the ball rolling for your presentation and for our seminar today. So you know about business purpose and value proposition, don't you? So tell us how this question led to you becoming the founder of Well-Rounded. And people, I leave you in the good hands of Eve. So thank you very much, Eve, for today.
Thank you. Okay, this is the time where I share my screen. Wish me luck, everyone.
Good luck. I'm just going to mute myself.
Okay, I hope that's all working for everyone. As I said, it's very strange not to have any hear any noises while you're talking at a screen. So what I want to do for you in the next 20 minutes is to look at my personal experience of what value proposition and business purpose means to Well-Grounded. As you've probably just heard, for those of you that were already logged in, I don't come from a kind of entrepreneurial background in terms of my career and in terms of probably my training. I have come through more of a kind of an academic and a master's degree in management and leadership. So if some of these terms don't fit to the entrepreneurial language, apologies, but hopefully my story will be of use as you look into the future. So just quickly, session outcomes. So as I said, what I really want to do is provide an understanding of business purpose, value proposition through the lens of Well-Grounded and myself. Hopefully share with you some interesting models that I've found useful doing and now reflecting on as putting together this presentation, but also for you to take away and use in the future. And something that I'm really passionate about is something called theory of change. So I really want to bring that to life as a model and a way of looking at your purpose and your value and implementing that. So that's what I hope that we will chat about. This is the bit where I was like, oh, talking about yourself, but I know as an entrepreneur and when I kind of became one, a social entrepreneur, became obvious how important the entrepreneur's journey is. And I really, really value hearing other entrepreneurs. So I did think a bit more background might be useful. So we've talked about kind of my interests growing up, that I was involved in not-for-profits. And then when I graduated, I moved directly into the charity sector. And those have been into small, medium-sized charities, working specifically with disabilities, with neurodiversity, with people that have found themselves facing social and economic disadvantage due to reasons completely outside of their control. And I've also held board positions. An issue that's particularly close to my heart is Down syndrome, because I have a nephew with Down syndrome, so I'm quite involved in the Down syndrome community. So as Rui said, I actually did a master's at City, and I really, really enjoyed the academic learning and the application of the academic learning into practice, but I was still working in a charity and had always had this idea about Well-Grounded from when I graduated. I graduated, lived really close to Borough Market, started really enjoying hospitality and coffee and seeing all the benefits that can come from that connection over coffee. And then my love of the charity sector and supporting people, this idea I bored my friends with for years and years and years. And it was really from the completion of my master's and at that age where I just quit my job and set up Well-Grounded, very, very small prototype, which I will again talk about. But it was through that I think I got the confidence to go it alone. I've always wanted to be like a co-founder, but I could never find anyone to want to co-found the crazy idea with me. So I'm definitely someone that likes to be quite operational in detail and probably less kind of founder-wise, but there we go. So that's just a little bit of background. Rui did mention what we do, but I thought to give you some context, ultimately, Well-Grounded is a series of specialty coffee academies across London, and we support a diverse group of talent through training, education, accreditation, mental health support, employability and life skills coaching, and we transition them into careers in the specialty coffee industry. So predominantly that's been as baristas, but over time we've moved people into roasting positions, into quality assurance roles, into wholesale. And as you can imagine, and I will talk about COVID because I think it's absolutely essential, that is part of our discussion, those roles have become really diverse as we're facing, the hospitality industry is facing such difficulties. So the result, we hope, is happy coffee professionals supplying what has been an industry that has really struggled to recruit and retain staff. So that need and demand being matched. So bringing together amazing talent, nurturing and empowering that talent into careers. So that's kind of what we do. And a really quick whistle stop tour in terms of how we've got to where we are today. So as I said, in 2015, quit my job. I raised £5,000 from an organisation called Unlimited, who, if you haven't heard, there are organisations that fund social enterprises in that really startup stage. And they funded me, and I really, like, I'm sure you guys talk about lean methodology, took a lean methodology approach. This picture, I should say, is of my first 2 trainees. So the first 2 people we supported in that first pilot program. And now, fast forward to 2020, we have our own academy here. I'll give you a tour if I could, in King's Cross, just by Coles Drop Yard. And we have an academy in Langdon Park, which is in Tower Hamlets. We had a turnover last year of £500,000 and are planning for that to double, and our sites to move across the UK over the next 3 years. Our investment, so what's, I guess, maybe different to us than some other organisations that might have presented to you, is that our investment comes from multiple different sources, and 50% of our investment comes from what we call grants and foundations. So that's kind of your traditional giving to kind of charitable organisations. 20% comes from traded services. So for us, that's rental hire and private training, recruitment fees, so employers paying for our talent to go into work at a fee, and coffee sales. And then 30% is made up of our contracts and our service delivery for local authorities, for big kind of contract caterers, for us to find, nurture and develop talent locally. So it's a mixed model, and it makes things more complicated in terms of value propositions, in terms of lots of different things. But I chose that approach because I wanted us to have resilience. And also, I come from a voluntary sector background, so I was always going to be kind of social education impact first. And that was always going to be the way I could and would lead the organisation. I hate saying these things because I feel like I'm not being modest, but we've had some really amazing successes in terms of accolades, voted kind of top social enterprise of the year, in the top social enterprises of the year for the last 2 years running. We've just got some amazing recognition for the work we've been doing during lockdown from Code Hospitality and London on the Inside, and featured in kind of Independent, Evening Standing, The Guardian. So all those things that are really good for our motivation as a team, but also, I guess, recognise the work that we're doing in the community. And then just finally on that piece, so this was of March, and actually the figures are much higher, but I didn't have time to update our deck. We've now trained over 500 people. We've moved 200 people into work training and education. And we work with over 120 employers, from your small independent coffee shop at the end of the road, through to your contract caterers and everything in between. So the likelihood is, if you're London based and you like coffee, you've been served by one of our baristas that have come through the well-grounding programme and you just don't know it. And isn't that great? So that's kind of where we're at. So just rounding off this early section, Rui said it might be useful just to provide a bit of context around what a social enterprise is. Now, in all honesty, this could be the whole presentation, and I would happily do a presentation on social enterprise, because it's quite complex to a lot of people. It's not a legal structure. It is ultimately the way that you do business and the way you invest your profit. So this is a quote from Social Enterprise UK. And the key points here are that you trade for social or environmental purpose. You have a clear social mission, and you build income through selling goods and services that then gets reinvested back into your social mission. And to give you some live examples, and we'll look at these later, some you might know as Tom's, the company that sells shoes and glasses and other things now, and every pair that they sell, they then donate one to someone who can't afford to buy them in a developing country. Or Patagonia has a really, really big social and environmental and climate change agenda, all the way through to charities like Oxfam, who have charity shops, so they're trading services. So you really can be, you can have a different kind of constitution and still be a social enterprise. Well Grounded is a community interest company. We reinvest all our profits into the work that we do, but actually everything we do is educational. It's our mission statement, it's part of our articles of association. So we are quite clearly a social enterprise in all our governance structure and what we do. So I hope that gives a quick overview of what a social enterprise is. And I wish you could ask me questions as you go along, but it's weird that you can't. If you've got any questions about that, I'd be more than happy to talk about it. So going on to the meaty bit of the presentation around business purpose. So I'm actually going to start with a short video. Fingers crossed it works. It's quite an old video, and apologies if you've seen it. It's by Simon Sinek. He does have some amazing, more modern videos, but I think this really captures how I look at business purpose, how I feel business purpose should be central to every organization, and it's talking about the why. So I'm just going to press play and hope that this works.
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean, what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. And that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right, because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't the other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
So hopefully what I think Sinek does really well in that short video, and as I said, there's loads of stuff on his website that really captures more of that detail and talks about more modern applications of the why, is that it's that kind of sense of purpose. And I really like this quote of, your purpose is the wind in your sail. So for me, the why, the purpose, as a founder should be the first thing you think about, the first thing that you work on defining, because it's from that you build your customer base. It's from that you build your staff morale. It's from that you build your kind of comms to the world. It's looking at, what is the impact that I want to have on the world? What is my belief? What is my purpose? And for that, people will start to engage in your narrative and engage in your product. So well-grounded purpose is our vision. So it's our vision statement to the world. It's, I guess, sometimes a bit easier for charities and social enterprises, the business purpose, because it's absolutely the core of everything you do. So our vision is of a society where people are thriving socially and economically in a diverse, dynamic and nurturing coffee industry. It's central to all our decision making. It's central to engaging new partners. It's essential to contracting new stakeholders, contracting new clients. It's central to prioritization. So that purpose is the center of all our decision making. And I'll show you how we do that. It's not just something we say, it's something that we implement. But really what I think Sinek was trying to show, and what we've definitely, and I've definitely found with Well Grounded, is in defining your purpose, you bring your customer loyalty, and you bring your customers and you bring your stakeholders along with you. So things from early adopters all the way through to, especially times of crisis, people are so driven by your purpose that they will adapt and support you through thick and thin, ultimately. So for me, that sense of the why is, as Sinek shows, absolutely central to then everything that falls out to that, the what you do. So it is the core of the business. And value proposition really feeds off that. So again, there are multiple definitions of value proposition. One that I use quite a lot is, it's a collection of the most persuasive reasons people should notice you and take the action you're asking. It's the reason, your USP, if you'd like, the value that you give to your customer, and it's so interlinked with your purpose. You know, what is that value that you, and that culture and that position that you're showing to the customers that will make them want to buy with you, that will make you want to engage with you and talk to you. And I really like this idea of keeping it simple. I think as an entrepreneur, I found that I wanted to be everything to everyone. And I did quite a lot of work at the beginning around value proposition and keeping it simple. So again, some big names, but I think it's easier to understand when they're kind of really globally known brands. But Airbnb, They famously said, it's better to have 1,000 customers that love you than 1,000,000 that like you. So if you can find those people that love you, you can find those people that really buy into your purpose and your value proposition, they will be your advocate. And something that kind of evidences that is Airbnb. 50% of their early growth was solely through referrals. So they're real indicators of just how people are buying into your value proposition and your purpose. The things that are difficult and slightly different for non-profits is that we have multiple customers. So, if you're a product and you sell something and whether it's Apple, you ultimately have a customer that is buying your product. For Well Grounded, our customers don't pay for anything. So our trainees that come onto our program do not pay. It's completely free. Our employers pay a nominal fee to show their engagement in our activity, but it doesn't cover our costs. So really, our customers are not paying for our service, but the value proposition is as central to our relationship with them as it would be in another organization. And when I'm looking at value proposition, I'm looking at, okay, what is the benefit of my product? Who is it for? Who's it specifically for? What value is it providing them with? How is it different from our competitors? Another book I read early on was about IKEA, and you will queue for IKEA to buy something that is really reasonable and looks great, but you will go home and have to make it yourself and get really frustrated that you've had to build it. But their value proposition is so strong because they do something for a certain segment of a customer base really, really well. So speaking for Well Grounded, but before I come to our value propositions, this is something that I think are really useful, and I've added the links at the end. But what this looks, it's Bain and Company, is an interactive tool that looks at all the different types of value that customers are looking for. Now, it's probably no surprise that a lot of people now, especially younger generations, are looking for really positive purpose and value proposition. So not just the functional, but looking for the life-changing social impact, engaging with a product and a brand that has a really strong purpose and is purpose driven. And this replicates, for some of you that might know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basic needs are met, and then you build up to self-efficacy and self-actualization. Now, again, they've used the example here, Tom's, around kind of transcendency, because they're linking so much back to their purpose. So again, I think what this shows is just the really tight interaction between and interdependency between your purpose and your value proposition. And I think also it's worth saying that it's not just your customers. A value proposition and your purpose should be the thread throughout your whole organization, your staffing, your interactions with your partners and your clients, your volunteers in our case. It is what builds the loyalty that people have to you as an organization. So I would really recommend looking at this, and again, the links at the end of this model, because they've done research around, if you were working in food and beverage, it would show you which of these values has been evidenced to be most important to customers. So it's quite a useful tool. So in terms of so how I apply this sense of value proposition to Well Grounded, as I've said, we have 3 or more key customers. Our trainees, number one, the group of wonderful people we work with to build their confidence, empower them with the skills that they need to move into work. So for us, we are providing high quality, free training and accreditation, employment support, one-to-one mentorship, and a free recruitment service. Our message is that we will empower you with the training and support you need to get a job in coffee for free, and we'll have fun along the way. So this is the benefit of working with us. And this is, hopefully, it also shows in there through the terminology of empowerment and moving into work, how it links to our purpose. Second is employers, probably the easiest one at the beginning to ascertain, a highly skilled and motivated new generation of talent. So in recruiting through Well Grounded, you're not only getting great talent, but you're investing in someone's future and unlocking that potential. So when we're talking to employers, for us, it's really important that our trainees and our graduates are seen as an incredible talent pool, but also they are connected to our purpose. So they see the work, the investment, the care and the nurturing that goes into the development of people, because not only does that make them loyal to come back to us and to recruit through us, especially if things might go wrong, you know, everyone might decide that it's not the right role for them, we might have challenges with a placement, but they always come back to talk about another placement, because in building that attachment to our value proposition and our purpose, they are loyal to us as an organization. But also more than that, I really think that value proposition around connecting to our purpose does then feed into, we've had evidence that it also feeds into the practices of our employers as well, looking at their recruitment process, looking at their training and development of their staff. And third, our value proposition to our funders and our contractors is we provide high quality bespoke training provision, moving people into sustainable job outcomes. So for a commissioner, so like a local authority, what we're saying is through commissioning through us, you will be unlocking the potential of local talent by moving vulnerable adults into work, reducing unemployment costs and achieving huge savings to the public purse. So 3 quite different value propositions, but hopefully that shows you how they both, how you put value proposition, or I put value propositions together for Well Grounded, and also how it links to our purpose. Some examples that you probably look at in terms of this program, but different organizations that have probably a much clearer value proposition that they have in all their marketing and comms. So this is Bellu Water. This is the main web page. I've just screenshot it yesterday. For those of you that don't know, they're a social enterprise. I believe they're limited, well, I won't say just in case it's wrong, but they're a for-profit company, I think limited by shares. But the main point here is that all of their profit goes towards to WaterAid, to provide water for people that can't access water, fresh water. And that is what their value proposition is, their purpose is, and it's so clear in all their comms and all their relations. So make amazing things make amazing happen, 100% of net profits to WaterAid. And then another one that I know I've seen speak at City and was motivated by is Karma Cola. So again, every drink does good. So their value proposition, their purpose is on all of their marketing and their comms, and it looks really cool at the same time, I think. So hopefully those examples kind of translate maybe to more of a product-based organization rather than us, which we're an education and training provider. But then I wanted to show an example of more of a charity. So this is a charity that that's doing an amazing work. Again, a startup, a social entrepreneur that I met along my social entrepreneur journey. They are a charity supporting vulnerable young people moving into their first home, and it says it right straight there on their website. And I guess what's here is they're similar to us in terms of their purpose and value proposition are very interrelated, and their customers are their commissioners. So their commissioners, the value to their commissioners is their award-winning social enterprise that delivers high impact support services to vulnerable people. So another example of more of a charitable organization putting their purpose forefront of their comms and their value proposition. Okay. Finally, again, something you may have already covered or be looking at is a business model canvas. So I've put ours here. Formatting's gone a bit strange, but what I think is useful is how the value proposition sits within the middle of a business model canvas. So a canvas is ultimately the building blocks to a big picture of an organization that tends to be on one page. It's something that I did when I was doing kind of social entrepreneurial programs, social enterprise programs. And it's kind of the rationale of how organizations create and deliver their value proposition. So our value propositions are in the middle, but as you can see, surrounded in this business model canvas is key partners, key activities, key resources, customers, segments, channels, cost, revenue, and at the bottom, impact, which also relates directly to our purpose. So it shows how value propositions are executed and how central they are to delivering an organization's activity. At the end, again, I put links to some really interesting models that play around with the business model canvas, particularly for value proposition. So it talks you through how to develop a value proposition, and as part of a business model canvas. So they might be quite useful for you going forward. Okay, I'm whittling along. These pictures are just because I love pictures of training, and they're not really, so I do love them, but they have a purpose. So the picture on the table is our second prototype, and the picture on the right is here. And this was at the beginning of the year, where we graduated over 30 people through our training programs. So I guess this is to illustrate that value propositions need to be tested. They need to be designed through interacting with your stakeholders, your clients, your customers, and they need to be tested on an iterative basis. As a small startup with no investment, I did that through prototyping. What are the assumptions? What are the value propositions that I think that our business is about? So talent, moving into work, our beneficiaries wanting to go through our programs and being able to move into work, and our funders paying for that value. And at every stage of the prototyping and moving to next steps, and was all around failure, as I'm sure you've talked about a lot and are going to, but it was really around involving our stakeholders and our graduates into our development and review. So we have at governance level, in terms of our discussions and feedback from everyone involved in programs, our interaction with our donors and our advisors. So at every single point, it's adapt, do, reflect, do, however that circle goes, but ultimately reviewing and adapting and changing. And that's an ongoing process, which might tweak our value proposition, and has definitely done with COVID, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides. One thing absolutely essential for social enterprises, and I think it can be applied to all organizations, is how you evidence what we would say are impact. So how you evidence that your product works. That has always been there from day one. It's where my background is. I've worked in randomized controlled trials, so a lot of high kind of education studies, and so it's been integral in learning, reviewing, changing, doing. So I would really press the importance of evaluating your impact and with your stakeholders and your customers. And how for us that all comes together is something we call the theory of change. Now, again, I could talk about this for hours, because I think it's not only a really useful tool, but it's also been absolutely central to Well-Grounded's growth over the last few years and into the future. So a theory of change is a not-for-profit term function which looks at what is the change you want to see in the world. So what is your purpose, and how does every activity you do lead you to that central purpose? The aim is that it means that you don't get mission drift. You don't start doing activity that doesn't lead to your purpose. You don't start kind of wasting resource and time on things that don't lead to your fundamental purpose. This was designed by myself and a group of stakeholders. We had consultants in to help us deliver it. And now we use it in everything, in recruitment, in team conversations, when we're looking at doing a new service, doing a new product. Does that activity lead to our purpose? So it really is the backbone of our organization. We use it with our conversation with funders, with employers. It's in our employer deck. And what it tracks, so from the outside, is the activity. So our work placements, our community engagement, our employer education. Then what does that lead to? Ultimately, that leads to the value propositions. Employers with talent, it leads to a community built around building the social capital of their local people. It builds graduates moving into work and being sustained in employment. And then ultimately that leads to our purpose. So I think it's a really useful tool, especially for anyone that's looking at a social impact organization first. So again, any questions you might have on that would be really happy to discuss. I think the other thing around purpose and value proposition that I thought would be useful to share is it isn't just for your customers. I think it's what makes customers loyal. It's what we've seen makes customers loyal, but you have to mean it and live it. There is no point having a purpose that you share to the world and then you don't do internally, because that bleeds out and eventually that reaches your customers. So I would say if it's, you know, something that you are going to really focus on and be passionate about, it has to be a part of your whole organization. Okay. So finally, I thought when I was reflecting on the presentation, what's quite interesting, and I hadn't thought about until I put this presentation together, is what COVID has taught or shown me about our purpose and our value proposition. So just a quick overview. When COVID happened, like many companies, we had to stop a load of activity. So we were running training for 40 people. They were like 3 days away from graduating and moving into confirmed jobs. We had to stop training immediately. And also on top of that, we have the people that we've worked with over all the years. So those 200 people we've moved into work and those 500 people we've trained were facing greater adversity. So we had a greater demand for our services, but obviously we had complete change in our organization. On top of that, a lot, as you've seen, 50% of our revenue comes through our services, which stopped. So we weren't getting paid for them. So, you know, like many organizations, we were losing money and had way more activity to deliver. We transitioned all our services online, our mental health. We increased our mental health, employment and training provision, provided food parcels to those that needed them. We fundraised. So we did a crowdfunder, which was smashed, and we involved all our partners in doing an activity and raising money. So it was called the 234 campaign, because that's how many people that have accredited from our programs. And everyone had to do an activity that involved the number 234. So I cut off 23.4 centimeters of my hair. People ran 23 miles, you know, all those kind of activities. But what the activity showed me is how the fact that we invested so much, we haven't invested, it's just so core to who we are, our purpose and our value proposition, meant that in times of crisis, not only did people support us, so we raised £250,000 in 3 months to sustain the organization, but we also pivoted our model because our value proposition had to change and people believed in us, knew what our purpose was and went with us on that value proposition. So we no longer charge employers, but we have still managed to get one person into work every week since lockdown easing. We've, as I've said, changed our services online, and we've got 100% referral recommendation from our graduates and our users. So that loyalty shows that if you get the why right, then the what and the how can change. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to end on, just how COVID has shown me and the organization just how important purpose is and how your value propositions can shift and change if you involve your stakeholders, and they will remain loyal and committed to you as a cause, as an organization. And I think other than, it's a bit of a cheesy quote, guys, sorry. But why I'm finishing it, I'm not a quote person, but why I'm finishing it is the first trainee that you saw in the kind of second slide, he sent me this. He was going through quite a challenging time, and he sent me this. And it's always kind of, whenever I'm thinking about purpose, it really rings true. So if you fail, never give up, because fail means first attempt in learning. And end is not the end. In fact, end means effort never dies. If you get no as an answer, remember no means next opportunity. So let's be positive. And why it resonates so much with me is that, you know, the work we do is around saying it's okay to fail. It's okay to have failed. It's okay to want to change, start something new. It's all about empowering people and organizations to take on their next adventure. And so as an organization, that purpose for striving for social and economic inclusion, for building a really enriching industry, means that failure is part of our journey towards that purpose. So yeah, stay true to your purpose and the rest will follow. And this is just some of the things I've talked about and some other references that might be useful. So I guess that is over to questions.
Eve, hello. Can you see me, Eve?
I can. Hi.
Thank you very much. Let's just stop. Can you stop your presentation so we can go back to questions now? Thank you very much. What an amazing journey and what an amazing story. I was just taking my notes as you were speaking, and then we go from coffee to young people to all of a sudden social impact, and then you decide to cut your own hair. Am I right?
Yeah, my husband actually did it. I can't take credit for that.
And there's even a coffee graduation. I want to join your program now. I was actually going to get the question started, but people have been asking already questions in the Q&A section. So to those of you that haven't asked a question just yet, or maybe you want to ask a question, please feel free to drop your question there. And even well, I'll be reading them to Eve, and Eve will be answering them live. But if from my side and from everyone's side, I guess, what an amazing story and what an amazing journey. In fact, Rita here starts by saying, if you are a legend, most respect for you. Read this question, and thank you, Rita, for your question. If you could go back to when you were 18 or whenever you started uni, would you take a different path? Would you have would you change or done anything different, or even teach yourself, your younger self, something different?
No, I think I feel very fortunate to have found what makes me happy and passionate and what drives me. And I think that is, yeah, I think I'm very, very lucky to have done that. You know, yes, there are things I wish I'd done differently. I'm very self-critical, so I'm always thinking around my development points. So maybe self-reflective is a better word than critical. But I'm quite a kind of, I want to be better, I want to learn, I want to improve, I want to be everything for everyone. So there's always things I would have done differently. But in terms of my career, absolutely not. I needed those early experiences in the not-for-profit sector and the charity sector to, you know, feed my love of the charity sector, but also show me the parts that I didn't love. I needed my academic, you know, doing a master's and working full time is really hard. You have no social life. But, you know, that gave me confidence and an amazing network. 2 people became my first board members who I met on the course. And one of them is still my financial advisor. He is, talking about heroes, he's a hero. He's not listening, so I can say that without him getting too big ahead. So in all honesty, no, I wouldn't have changed anything. And I feel very fortunate to have done that. But I think if you're in a journey where you're not quite sure what that is, having voluntary experiences, having, you know, the amount of people I recruit now, and they may have had a very different career and be looking, you know, my senior members of staff have not come from the voluntary sector, and they come for me taking a kind of a big pay cut because they really want to invest in, you know, our purpose and our values. And that just kind of that point around, we're all driving, I think, for that real connection to a purpose. So I think having those experiences as much as we can of different careers or different activities as boards, as whatever that is really pivotal in finding out what you do and don't want from your career.
Fantastic. So we have more questions coming in. So Connor, thank you, Connor, and hello, Connor, because I recognize you as a regular. How do your students find you, and what is the process for them to get on board?
So how our trainees find us? So we have a progressions team who work directly going out into the community. A lot of that before was quite like physical. So we go to local job centres, local community centres, meeting people, showing people what specialty coffee is like, the craft. And then we have a lot of referrals now. So we have more referrals from friends than we've ever had before, which is amazing. And I think, you know, again, is a key indicator of that value proposition. And then we have just kind of use social media and other kind of online, you know, you can find us on Coffee Jobs Board or Indeed as a training opportunity. So it's 3-tiered. But it's really important to form really strong relationships with what we call referral agencies, so local grassroots organizations, and then building that loyalty amongst our graduates. So we've had people's brothers and cousins and sisters and mums come on the course. Then we've had people, you know, then form such strong friendships that they move in together. So yeah, that's how we reach our trainees.
Okay, we have another question this time from an anonymous, and they start off by saying, "Hello, Eve, and thank you very much for the engaging presentation. So, quick question: what employers have recruited you in the past, and how did you build a relationship with the companies?"
Yeah. So that was probably my biggest fear, because coming from the charity background, I knew how I, had networks in terms of local organizations and charities. With employers, I wasn't from the specialty coffee industry, and it's quite a niche industry, and it's, from the outside it can feel quite hard to penetrate. So how I started is I just literally went into a coffee shop and asked someone. And then through all the conversations I started to have, things started to connect, because people are connectors. So I went to a local youth centre, which was part of a church, and the youth centre manager there had a volunteer who was a manager in a cafe. That cafe then gave me their training space, gave me their trainer to deliver that first pilot. And then from there, it spiraled. I went to London Coffee Festival. I took my 2 trainees at the time. I made them talk to like one of the leading coffee professionals there. And just, I did do quite a bit of fundraising in my last few jobs. So persistence is key. And if you've got something really of value to say, then people do listen. And so it was always my worry, but it has been one of the most fulfilling, because it is the community of our coffee industry that have really got behind us during COVID, that really, nurture our trainees and are really loyal to us. So persistence really, and just there's always conversations, following up on those conversations, not worrying about being persistent, because they will tend to lead somewhere if it's right.
Fantastic. So we have more questions coming in, this time from Georgios, and he's saying, "Hello, Eve, and what a story." So the feedback has been amazing so far. So how a new entrepreneurial project can actually earn some respects and a profitable position in the sector of social enterprises. Georgios is asking, is all about the purpose or all about the marketing, like Apple? I think this is more of a controversial question. If we decide to go, is it A, the purpose, or B, the marketing to make a social enterprise succeed?
So do you mean as in what do you prioritize, the marketing or the social purpose, or?
Yeah, in order to become respectful and profitable in a way.
I mean, I will answer in the way that I run my business and the way that we are in education. Like, something that we are probably quite poor on is marketing and branding. It's not a specialism we have. It's not any money that we don't put any resource by it. It's always a bit of someone's job. That does prevent us having a really good coffee product that we're selling to the market. But it doesn't prevent us getting trainees, getting our employers, and reaching funders, because what they want to see is things like our theory of change. They want to see marketing in their eyes. So I think we look at marketing through the lens of who our stakeholders are and who we have our value propositions for. If you are a social enterprise selling to a consumer base, and you want to say, in buying this product, you will do this, then that obviously has to be central to your marketing. I would say and urge that any organization who, they challenge that you say you are doing what you say you're doing. And actually, if you're setting up a social purpose organization, you are able to show, like these organizations are, this is the impact we've had. So it's not just marketing for marketing's sake, it's marketing with evidence to back it up in a way that's digestible to your customers. And then as big contractors or third sector organizations, we're always able to challenge things. So we can say, okay, can we see your accounts or your impact report or whatever that is? So yeah, I think if you're looking at a consumer product, marketing and brand is essential, but you have to back it with real impact.
Sorry, I'm just blown away by the feedback that I'm reading. And whilst I was listening to you, I was also reading the feedback. I'm also conscious of the time. Eve, are you happy to take maybe 4 or 5 more questions? Is that okay? Because we have some positive upload.
I don't need dinner, You're all sitting there eating dinner. I wish I could see some faces, Actually, if I could see them, I'd be more hungry.
We'll have coffee for dinner. But I'll just read you Gardner's, and thank you, Gardner, for the question. Thank you for the lovely webinar, and thank you, Eve, for sharing your own experience. I really enjoyed the positive vibes. So thank you, Eve. My question is, what life lesson did you learn the hard way? And I would probably say this related to maybe what you do.
So what as in well-grounded?
You could be well-grounded, or your 15 years of experience.
The hard way. Setting something up is not easy. It's relentless and it's all-consuming. But I have that personality trait where my work and my life have never been separate. And I guess what probably, have had my burnout is I get sick. So I'll go, I think it was School of Social Entrepreneurs. They talked about your stress appetite. And I'm someone that really likes quite a lot of stress, loads of things going on, loads of conversations, loads of activity, but then I'm quite quick to peak over, where some people are like, whereas I'm like, wow, I'm peak performing, but then quite quickly I can drop. And I guess maybe that was learning the hard way of, I've also had a daughter quite recently. I just can't operate at the same level. So I think over the years, I've probably learned from getting quite sick, but not like seriously sick, but just kind of, having the flu or getting, my last job like, one of the jokes was I have the most random illnesses, that, I need to manage that stress. And especially when it's not just you, now we're a team, there's 8 of us, we're recruiting. I need to be able to manage not that stress, but just that energy, because it feeds onto people. Other people don't want to be working at 8:30 at night or at the weekends, because it's a really exciting thing. So I think learning the hard way, maybe more just around managing the expectations of what I can achieve.
That could be a side effect of coffee as well, no?
I only have one a day. You will probably be surprised, yeah.
What? A related question, and this time the question is, when you started Well-Grounded, were you working full-time on Well-Grounded, or did you have a side job?
Yeah, so when I first started Well-Grounded, that first pilot, I was working part-time as a consultant. So I did kind of charity consultancy. And I did that for, I think over a year. And it wasn't until I took that next jump to do it full time that I think Well-Grounded had the step change. Because, as much as I like to work, I had also, as a consultant, you're dealing with kind of quite tight deadlines for someone else. You have no control over your own deadlines. So I was working part-time, but I do think the step change happened when I managed to do that full-time, do Well-Grounded full-time.
Okay. A question now related to staff. So how do you focus the attention of your staff? This is from Aaron. So for example, do you put most of your resources into fundraising, finding employers? What's the focus or the allocation?
Yeah, so because again, the way we're funded is what we call restricted funds. So our 50% or even more of our income is restricted to delivering social outcomes, our purpose. So therefore, our biggest resource is our delivery team. So our coffee trainers, our progressions, our kind of job support workers, our mental health advisors, and then our work with employers. So that's where the majority of our resource goes to. As I said, we have a very small marketing function. It's like half of one person. And then leadership is, and our board. I would say that I have a really engaged board that have been really, really integral to how much we can achieve and how much I can achieve, because it's almost like, you get extra resource that you're ultimately not paying for. So that was really key.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now time for the last 3 questions, and one of them will be from me. So how do you measure your impacts at Well-Grounded? You mentioned that during your presentation, but I was just hoping that we could unveil a little bit about that.
Yeah, so everything in our theory of change we evidence through multiple functions. So we look at, for our individuals, we look at we look at skills development, so through self-assessments of skills development. They get accreditation, so we track our accreditation numbers. We track our positive outcomes, and evidence that. So if people move into work training or education, we evidence that they've done that through kind of documentation, whether that be certificates or a job contract. And then we do longitudinal impact measurement, which looks at 6 months and a year longitudinal study for our graduates, because all graduates enter an ongoing graduate program of job support. With our industry, so with our clients, we track our employers. We have regular assessments that we have virtual interviews. They are virtual now, interviews with them in terms of their engagement, the changes in their practice depending on their activity and how they've shifted, as I've said, some of their the ways that they nurture and train staff due to engagement with us, and the same in terms of community, so tracking our community engagement, the referrals that we get made. So we look at each strand of our theory of change and have tracking tools at every point. And with COVID, we had a whole new wave of tracking tools that came in, which were much more around quicker assessments of impact, because what we found is that people have shorter engagement in terms of what they want. Understandably, we're all online all the time. You don't want a kind of a big process. So that sense of, would you recommend this to refer? Would you refer it? Those things that help capture some of that. Do you feel better supported at the end of this call? So it slightly shifted with COVID, but it's been interesting to see how the impact is still measuring really high.
Okay, thank you. So last 2 questions then. The first one is, it was how easy hard was for you to transition from working in the charity sector to establishing your own social enterprise?
I mean, it's hard in terms of the energy you have to put behind it. Would I do it now? Probably no, with a 1-year-old. But I think if you are, well, it depends on your product, but our product is relational. It's around building relationships, building stakeholder management, and that for me is what I love and I enjoy. And if you build those relationships around your purpose, I think that it is achievable. Plus there are amazing organizations like yours, like Unlimited, School for Social Entrepreneurs, Beyond Business, Hatch Enterprise, these and loads more that fund social entrepreneurs to test, pilot and grow their ideas. And if you are thinking about it, measure your impact from the moment you start delivering any activity, because not only is that telling you whether your value proposition is right and your purpose is right, but also it leads to future funding, because you can prove that what you're doing is having an impact.
The last question, a cheeky one, asking you if you have ideas about starting your own chain of coffee shops.
No, interesting about value proposition and purpose. We get asked a lot if we will start a coffee shop, and I'm always like, no. For me, it was always very clear that what we are about is supporting as many people as we can. If we start coffee shops, our focus becomes coffee shops. They are hard to run. They are, as you can imagine now, is not the time as well. But, they would take all our resource. Whereas for us, with our academies, we can have much greater impact and then move people into jobs in those cafes. And you can hold me to that. I've been saying that for 4 or 5 years. So, come back in 5 years' time and I'll be like, no, I'm not opening a coffee shop.
That makes total sense. One last question from me and we can wrap it up. What product, service, innovator do you admire and why?
What innovator do I admire? Oh, gosh.
It could be a product, product, service, a social entrepreneur or innovator. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Sorry, you have put me on the spot, just because I think my networks, some of the case studies I've given are around those kind of bigger companies that have a really strong social impact. I put Patagonia in there because recently I just kind of really got into them and have ended up buying kind of went into all their research and ended up buying like a £200 jacket and being like, what have I done? But it was, it says exactly what we've been talking about. You read about the purpose, you align to it and you think, I can afford that. I think there are what I've realized, and I didn't realize before I set up Well Grounded and my new network of kind of small social enterprises and voluntary communities, they do such incredible work. You know, before I'd be like, there was too many small organizations, we all need to get together, save resource, you know, centralize our services. But the organizations I've seen through, like Settle, the organization I talk about, they are making tangible impact in local communities, which will scale, but is having real impact and benefit. And I think you can never, and those organizations work day and night because they are kind of hand to mouth in terms of their delivery. So I think kind of more generally, I think the power and the innovation that happens in agile small nonprofits and social enterprises is really amazing if you look and tap into it, as well as the big guys that are kind of the great examples that people can attach themselves to.
Okay, Eve, thank you so much. I'm sure that our audience back home will be running me in the world with a good round of applause. I think the story was amazing. The journey is amazing. The speaker was even amazing. So thank you very, very much for your time with us today. To our audience, I will invite you to register for the next startup seminar. You can use the QR code underneath my name, and I'll see you all next week. Eve, thank you again so much for your time and inspiring story, particularly because you are a City University student. And we do hope to see you again soon, maybe for a cup of coffee when everything is more clear. To the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I shall see you again next week for another startup seminar. Thank you again, and good night, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.